A warm evening to everyone. Today's session is on interview tips. Let's decode this word interview. As you all can see, it's interview. So, what the employer is trying to check in you is your interview, right? How you view yourself internally and how you demonstrate it. Now, when I talk about interview tips, there's no magic which is going to happen overnight, right? So you have to take small steps to improve your communication skills, to improve on your knowledge, on your content, and certainly, yes, there will be certain questions that you would not be expecting from the interviewer, but definitely you have to work on them as and when they come. So, today my session will be purely on how to deal with the tricky questions which you are not aware and you wanted to go for it. And at the same time, we would also be discussing on this that how interview can be fruitful for you. That means you can be confident enough to make sure that yes, this is the time when I'm sure that I'm going to crack this. So let's start with this session, and I'm going to certainly give you many inputs on this. So this is something that we are going to talk intensely. So let's start with the very first point, that is company research. So at times this is a point that we usually take it lightly, that yes, through the interview only we will get to know what the company is into. But then we have to be sure about it, that if you're applying for a particular company, you should be well versed about it. Not only about the company, you should also be knowing for which job description you're going for. So company research is very, very important. You should know when the company has started. You should be aware of this, that what the company is into, what sort of sector it is dealing with, how many centers, how many locations they are being located into, where is their head office, who are their clientele. So if you have done a good amount of research, I'm sure your confidence level will be next level. Now, talking about the next point, how to dress. Now, this is something which I have been addressing from a long time. And even if I talk about myself, if I remember my days when I was on your side and I was preparing for the interviews. So what I used to do is I used to select my dress at least 2 days prior. So this is something that you need to understand, that stop taking things casually, because this is something that we feel okay. Last minute, I will just open my wardrobe, whatever I get, I'll just pick them and I'll just wear and I'll go. Don't do this. Okay. So I have been after so many years of experience, I can say this thing, that still I have seen many students who are doing last minute preparation, and they just feel that this is an area that we will do it last minute and that is okay with us. No, I would suggest you to at least decide a day prior or maybe 2 days if you wanted to be well prepared in advance. Two girls specifically, I wanted to add to this, to your dressing sense, is you can wear makeup, but at the same time, you should understand this thing, that your makeup should not be loud. Okay, so you should be maintaining your natural gestures while you are presenting yourself. Right now, you can see that I'm, moving my hands. So this is something which is being accepted, and this comes under body language, of course. But then for dressing, if you are properly dressed, if you are wearing light makeup, I'm sure you will be able to cope up very well during your interview. Now, interview questions. There is no one in this world who can tell you that yes, these are the questions which you can learn and you can just go straight away and can crack the interview. Today also, I am not going to tell you this, that these are the questions, but yes, certainly with experience we can tell you this thing, that there are certain set of questions where the probability of asking those questions increases very well, right? So you have to make sure that you are prepared with those questions, and you are not in a position where you are not able to answer even those questions. So frequently asked questions we will be discussing here. After which, how to practice for the interview, because again that is very important, that how to practice for it, because again I have told you that we have been sitting for this session, we are listening to this session, and we just feel like okay, ma'am will tell us few questions and maybe a day prior we will prepare those questions, and then tomorrow we will do some wonders. See students, I would try to say this thing here, that your interview is all about your mindset. So 70% it is your mindset, how you are making efforts for it, and 30% will be the demonstration or the presentation that you are going to give or you are going to do next day in front of the interviewer. So you have to keep your mindset positive and you have to keep practicing for it, because practice will ensure your selection for that particular organization. Now the last point is interview follow-ups. Now, this is a very frequent question. I would say that many students are asking me, and I would love to answer it before you ask me in the chat box here. So, interview follow-up again becomes very important. Reason being, at times we feel if we will ask the interviewer that when should I, get the reply on this, the person will feel offended. No, that person will appreciate your, willingness to take up that job. That person will be having this, that yes, this person is curious to know about his or her results. So follow up again is very important. And for follow up again, I will be giving you certain tips on this, right? So let's begin with this session, that is starting with like how to deal with offline and online interviews, and at the same time I will also connect the dots that we have started with, how to do the research of the company, how to practice for the interview, how to take up the follow-ups with the interviewers. So we are going to tackle everything during this interview. Now after COVID, I would say that after COVID, almost all the industries, all the companies have started with online interviews. Before that, only few handful companies or handful industries were open for online platform. But now, yes, you should be open for this, that whether you're called for the interview or you have to connect online, you should be comfortable in both the cases. You should not feel like that we are coming from a COVID era, we are very comfortable with the cameras and you should take our online interview only, or maybe other way around, where you are rigid about this, that I wanted to go to the company and I want to appear for the interview. So you should be open for this. Now, the biggest understanding over here, I would say, is that there are certain points that you have to keep in your mind when you are going for an interview and when you're appearing online for it. So when you're going for an interview, it's just that extra efforts you have to take into travel. So maybe if you have got a call for your interview and you are already aware 1 week prior that you have to travel for the interview, so make a proper planner for it. Just check that at what time you will be leaving and by what time you will be reaching there, and take at least half an hour before, because I have seen many candidates, because when we were taking interviews in my last session, I have told you that I have been taking interviews for IIT Powai also when I was working with a construction company. So we used to see that in campus that pattern is there, that everybody is settled pre-hand. But then the other way around, when we talk about the candidate walking into the companies, they are sometime on time. And this is something which I have heard somewhere and I really like this, that someone who is on time is late. So why I'm saying this? Because try to be in time, try to be prior to your time, so that you can keep yourself, checked before you start with the interview. Maybe if you're reaching half an hour early, you can adjust yourself to that atmosphere, you can adjust yourself with your dress, you can adjust yourself with how you will be going ahead with your interview. You can adjust with your thought process. So this all time you are going to get if you are reaching to your campus pre-hand, right? So try to reach the company at least half an hour early. Now, if I talk about facing an interview face to face, so sometimes I would say that the nervousness would be on a higher end, right, as compared to you're sitting in front of a laptop. So there's a quite I would say genuine reason behind it. Reason being कि when we are talking about an interview where we are going face to face, at that time we will be more nervous, more curious, and at the same time we will be anxious also. So being anxious, being nervous, doesn't matter. Like, why I'm saying doesn't matter, because if you're taking it in a positive way, definitely that is going to shift your aura, right? So it's about being anxious, being nervous to some extent will be fruitful to you. That shows that you are prepared and you are willing to take up that job. That is where your anxiousness and your nervousness will come. Otherwise, I have seen many candidates who are very casual in their interviews. Reason being they are not prepared. They are just like, okay, interview देने के लिए किसी ने बोला, we have just come and we have given the interview. So you should not be like that. After which, if I talk about the offline interviews where you are visiting to a company, body postures matter a lot, because in online interview you all know that only I would say one fourth or half of your portion will be displayed on your screen. But then when we talk about offline interviews, each and everything matters a lot. Again, we need to keep this in our mind that nobody is going to uh, make a point of each and every posture that you're making there, or each and every move that you're making there, but then make sure that it is not very extensive, or it is not very extreme for the interviewer. So for example, if you are sitting for an interview and somebody is asking you a question and you're sitting like this, so crossing your hands itself means that you are not paying attention to the person who is talking to you, right? So there are certain postures. Again, sitting legs is not advisable. So generally, these are the things that you have to keep in your mind. Most importantly, making eye contact, right? So be it online or offline, you have to make proper eye contact with the person. Now, again, you need to keep a point here that you should not be staring at the person. Okay, but yes, proper eye contact is something which you have to make during your interview. At the end, for offline, I would suggest this thing that whenever you are going to any company, just do the research pre-hand, that in the same in the same city, are there different branches? You are being called to the branch where you are going. So these are the checks that you should make sure, because there are multiple offices of the same company in a particular city. So if I talk about cities like Mumbai or Bangalore, so there may be possibility that they may be having two centers in different locations. So it should not happen that they have called you somewhere else, and if you have taken the help of Google and you have reached somewhere else, and later you are realizing it, right? So these are the things that you have to keep in your mind while you are going for an offline interview. Now, when coming to the online, for online, of course, you are going to get a link or maybe a meet ID before entering into that meeting. So make sure that you are 10 minute advance. You are prepared and you have sent the request to the another person that yes, I'm here. So that shows that you are very prepared, and you also get the time to adjust yourself with the camera and with your room, because you have to make sure that in the room there is no distraction, right? So you just make sure in that 10 minutes that yes, there is no distraction. You be comfortable and just check that maybe a day prior, or a day prior or 2 days prior, you can make sure that someone, maybe your friend, your cousin, or your sibling, you have given an online interview to them, right? So as a practice, you can do that. Otherwise, if you feel like you are not very comfortable with them, so be comfortable with yourself, stand in front of a mirror and start practicing, right? So this is something that we have to do for offline and online both. So for online, you have to be very cautious with this, that your internet connection is not losing in between. If at all you are connected with Wi-Fi and you know that there could be a possibility that there would be a power cut, in that position you can have some backup like mobile hotspot, right? So these are the things that you have to keep in your mind. Always wear a smile on your face. Okay, so this is something that is required. It doesn't mean that all the time you are sitting like this. But yes, at the same time, when you are speaking to someone, a proper smile should be maintained. That will help you to release your anxiousness and your nervousness, right? So this is something which is again been noted. And when it is a panel interview, right? Try and understand this thing. If you are a fresher and if it's a panel interview, पहले तो तीन चार लोगों को देख के ही डर लग जाता है कि इतने सारे लोग मिलके पूछने क्या वाले हैं मुझे, ठीक है? So always if you are going with a smile, with if you are going with preparedness, I'm sure कि फिर वो चार लोग हो या पांच लोग हो, आपको फिर फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा, ठीक है? So this is how you have to start working on. Now always sit with a glass of water so that wherever you feel like your energy is getting low, just have a sip of water and start the interview, right? So you can ask for a permission during your interview. Nobody will tell you no to drink water, right? So these are few things that you have to keep in your mind. Now, most importantly, the girl is sitting with a pen and time. Also, when I'm taking your session, you are just listening as if you will remember everything, whatever I will be telling it to you. So always try to sit with a pen and paper. You never know which point you have to make a note of it, and then the person could ask you later about the same thing, right? So always sit with a paper that will help you to analyze yourself and do better for the next upcoming interviews. So these are few different things that we have to keep in our mind during offline and online. There could be another mode of taking the interview, that is through your phone or telephonic conversation. Few things will remain same as we have already discussed, like clear the room of distraction. Like for online also you have to do the same. Have a pen and paper handy. Create a checklist about what to ask to them, or maybe the certificates that you wanted to put across. So these are the checklists that you have to keep yourself handy with. Now, if time is convenient, ask to reschedule. If at all you feel like the time will not be convenient, you will be traveling somewhere, so just don't take up the interview while roaming around. Okay, I have seen many students during COVID time that they are been taking interviews while they are on their way to somewhere. So in their car they are taking the interview. So this is not the professional way to take up the interview. If the time doesn't suit you, inform pre-hand, not on time, right? So there could be emergencies, but this sort of emergency will not be accepted. Now, for mobile phones, you have to just make sure that you are turning off your call waiting, because sometimes it is quite irritating, and you do not know who the other person is trying to call you at that point in time. So it may give you a distraction at the same time. Landline, I would not be discussing more about it, because I'm sure अभी hardly किसी के घर पे अब landline बचा है. But if at all it is, or the cordless phone is there, you can take the help of it. Resume, we already had a session last time, and I have talked intensely about it, how to prepare your resume. So most of the questions which will be asked in the interview will be from resume only. So you have to keep your resume handy, or you should be aware of it, what you have written in your resume. That is applicable for all the three rounds, right? Whether it is your offline, online, or telephonic, you should be aware that what you have written in your resume, because already with the interviewer. Now, talking about while reporting to the online interviews, what are the what is the checklist that you have to keep handy with you, and what are the certificates or what are the documents that you have to keep with you when you are appearing for the interview. So if you're appearing online, maybe you can make a folder on your desktop and you can collect or you can put all your documents under that folder so that you do not have to do last minute rush. And for the same, if you're going for offline, prepare a folder with chronological order. So if at all they are asking you to show your documents, you should be ready with that. So what are the documents which are required? Your mark sheets, your extra copy of resume. Keep this in your mind that the person will already be having it. I've already forwarded. Always try to keep an extra copy of your resume. Certificates of your achievements or extracurricular activities that you have participated, try to put them in place, and your internship certificates. So this is something which you have to keep yourself. Okay, so it's a quick checklist. I have already told you about the documents, but it is a quick checklist about your interview where you have to understand what is your job description, because it will help you to prepare for the questionnaire that we will be discussing later, right? So, if you are aware of what sort of job description you are applying for, the analysis of it will help you to answer many questions which will be asked during your interview. Research about company. Again, I have told you this is very important part and you have to do it. Practice interview questions. So questionnaire I will be providing you so you can prepare those questions. And I'm sure somewhere around there only the questions will be asked to you. Prepare questions to ask if you have any questions while reading the job description or while reading about the company. If you feel like this is the question which I wanted to ask to them, prepare pre-hand. Don't just sit in the interview and decide there itself that yes, I will be asking this or that. Choose outfit, I have already discussed this. Research interview etiquettes. So maybe you can take the help of internet. I always tell my students that we are spending a lot of time on internet, right? Sometimes doing some useless things also on internet. So better that if you are preparing for interview, use internet wisely. Maybe you can research about the company, you can research about job analysis, job description. You can also, look for, if you're not very sure what to wear, you can take help from Google. For outfit, I would say that you have to wear light color shirt and a dark color trouser, right? But still, if you want to have more understanding towards the etiquettes of your dressing style or maybe your, body language, you can take the help of internet. Know your own resume, because this is something I have already mentioned in my last session, that resume is something if you're preparing last minute, you will always be in a trap. Reason being, there will be many things that you have written there or you might have copy pasted, but you are not aware of it. So that may lead you to losing that opportunity. Now, in personal interaction, what can be probably asked to you is something that I'm talking in a broader aspect, and then later we will be narrowing it down with the type of questions and the purpose why those questions have been asked. I'm sure there are many YouTube videos which are available in which you will be finding that there are a lot of people talking about what questions can be asked. But today in my video, we will be talking about why those questions are being asked, why company is picking up that particular question only to ask you in your interview. So here, when we talk about a broader perspective, what actually you are preparing for is with your general awareness. So this is we start taking lightly that general awareness. अब क्या पूछेंगे वो लोग Olympics के लेंगे क्या मतलब you're not very sure कि what they will ask. Reason being you are not reading it regularly. So make it a habit that every day at least 15-20 minutes or half an hour you are devoting to newspaper. That will not only improve your general awareness, but it will also help you to improve your English also. Right? So start using that extracurricular activities. If at all you feel like your resume is not having the weightage which I want or which I expect from myself, definitely look for some extracurricular activities that will add weightage to your resume. Probably you can think of taking up some seminars or maybe attending some workshops, so that will add value to your extracurricular activities. Talking about academics, so you have to be very sure about your percentage. Sometimes even I have seen this during the interview, that if we ask somebody that what was your percentage in 10th or 12th, they are not very sure, somewhere between. How the students answer, ma'am, somewhere between 70%. So what is this somewhere between 70%? So you have to be very sure, because that is about you. As I've told you, it's interview, right? So the person is talking about you, not somebody else. So if you say that I am not sure about myself, then how you will be sure about that company? How you will be sure about that? So that will become little skeptical for the company also to hire you. So be very sure with the questions asked on academics, specific new during the interview. That will make you extra nervous. So something which you are not prepared and you are saying that this is my interest, and somebody asks some extended questions on that, will lead you again in a trap, because you have made that interest at that point in time. So these are few things that you have to start exploring yourself pre-hand and with a better answers. Communication skills. Now communication skills doesn't mean English here. This is something which is again misinterpreted at lot of times, right? So communication means whatever is there in your head. As I've told you, 70% it is all about your thought, right? What you are thinking, and 30% is how you are presenting it. So if you are in a position, be it any language, if you are in a position, whatever you are thinking and you are portraying it or you are presenting it, that will lead you to a selection. So communication skills, you have to just make sure that you are minding your words, whatever you are saying. Be polite in your interview, and just make sure that you are not using some extreme words. For example, if I say, if a person is asking you, why should we hire you? Because this is something which is a very popular question and being asked all the companies. So if somebody is asking you that why should we hire you, if you are answering like this, that sir, I can challenge you this thing, that you won't find best candidate other than me, that is something which is overconfidence, and that is not a proper way of communicating it. So the other way around could be, sir, I will give my 100% and I'm sure that I will be giving justice to this job, right? So this can be a ideal way to communicate. So communication plays an important role here. Sometimes we feel that if I'm giving the answer as the first one, which I've given you as an example, you feel like this will give the impression to the person, that person might take it in a offended way, right? So never use such words. Overall personality, as I've told you, how you are dressing up and how you are walking in, how you are shaking your hand, or maybe if you are asking for a permission from a person, that's a may I have a seat. Sometimes even this seems to be a very silly question. Should I ask to sit or not? But I would suggest my students to always ask to sit, because this is some small favor. Because if somebody is asking you for a favor, how do you feel? We feel good about it that somebody is asking us, right? So you should also be feeling in the same way, and you should always ask for a permission before sitting in that chair, right? So these are few things that we have to keep in our mind. Now, moving on to a little broader aspect on communication, because you might be again thinking about this, that ma'am has given an example, but then what are other things in which, if suppose I'm not very fluent in English, how I can tackle my interview, or whether I will be selected or I won't be. So this is a very usual question which goes across to everybody's mind, because at times, even if you are a fluent speaker, if you become nervous, whatever you have thought of, it all vanishes, right? So in communication, how to manage things is something that I've put on the slide. So listening skills, always pay attention to what the person is saying. If every time you're saying sorry sir, I did not get you, that shows that your listening skills is not proper, right? Even though if you're nervous or you're anxious, doesn't mean that you're not listening to that person. So listening skills is very, very important, and that is a part from where your communication will start, right? If you're not listening to that person, how you will communicate? Because you're not aware what the person is trying to ask you. Next is giving respect to the person. So maybe, as I've told you can have a firm handshake, or maybe you can ask a permission to sit in the chair. So they all are the part of your respect, how you are respecting the other person. Making a proper eye contact would also be a part of respect. Brevity, I've already discussed on this. It is about being on time. So I would say you should be in time, right? So 10 minutes prior if you're taking up an online interview, and 30 minutes prior if you're going for a offline interview. Now next point is friendliness and empathy. So these are the 2 points that you should keep in your mind. You should not be very rude. You should not be very harsh. Be polite. Be humble. Make a body posture in a way that it is not going too extreme for the other person. If everything is been maintained, I'm sure you will be confident to communicate anything or everything which is asked. At times, this comes to our mind that, ma'am, if we are not aware of a question which is being asked by the interviewer, and if we do not know the answer, how we will be confident with this, right? So again, here also you have to be prepared for this. That certainly there could be a few questions, because see, you have to spend maybe 30 minutes or 45 minutes in that room. And I'm sure that every question which will be asked to you, you might not be giving justice according to you. So you have your own expectation, and for some questions you may feel like, अरे मैं इससे भी better बोल सकती थी after speaking about that question. But then that's perfectly fine. Don't think at that point in time कि मैं और क्या बोल सकती थी. Focus on the next question, right? So if you are already in your mind with the previous question, your confidence will not be reflected at that time, because your mind is thinking something else. So if you wanted to be confident enough, be there with the interviewer, try to interpret what the person is trying to ask, and mainly with the questions which you are not aware with, politely you can say, sorry sir, I do not know at this point in time, but yes, I wanted to learn more about it. Probably after going from here, I will do a research on it. Maybe it may be related to your subject, related to some technical words. So if you're not aware, there's no point saying sorry for that. And not last but not the least, that is your non-verbal communication. So sometimes we feel that whatever we say, it will only add value to the person. But believe me, at the same time, what you are not saying, that also matters a lot to the interviewer, right? So make sure that your mind, your body is aligned with the same gesture which you wanted to portray in your interview. Now, there are certain do's and don'ts that you have to do during the interview. So, dress appropriately, know the exact time. As I've told you, don't wake up in the morning and look for the time for your interview. At least be prepared a day prior, that at what time you have to reach, look for the location and everything. Arrive early, at least 10 minutes prior. So this is for online. For offline, I've told you, if you're visiting to a company, visit at least half an hour prior. Sit still in your seat, avoid fidgeting and slouching. So this is something which is not recommended. Ask clarification if you don't understand a question. Repetition is something which is different, where you are asking the person to repeat the question. That means you are not mentally present there, right? But if the person has asked a question and you didn't understood what the person is trying to ask you, so there is no harm in asking the clarification about the question. Be thorough in your responses while be concise with your words. So don't drag, don't make stories. Sometimes this happens when somebody is asking you about your extracurricular activity or maybe about your achievement, and you start telling them about these stories, right? So be concise, be precise with your answers, be honest and be yourself, because this is something which is very very important. Sometimes students who bluff, they feel like the other person is not knowing it, but believe me, whatever is going in your head, it will automatically get reflected by few words, right? So the person would be able to understand and exhibit a positive attitude. So what do I mean by exhibit a positive attitude? It means that when you have arrived there, okay, so you have to start thinking positively. Don't think about this कि नहीं हुआ तो मैं क्या करूँगा, फिर अब मैं नेक्स्ट कौन सी कंपनी के लिए अप्लाई करूँगा. They all are your negative thoughts. So start thinking of some positive points. Positive points like, if I get this job, I'll buy something for my mother which she was, thinking of from a long time, or maybe I would be arranging a vacation for my parents. I would be getting a new phone for myself, or maybe getting a laptop for myself, which I was thinking from a long time. So these are few positive things you can, think before going for the interview, and even after the interview also. I would say that be positive, because अब जो हो गया उसको तो आप फिर से जाके बदल नहीं सकते हो, वो 30 मिनट्स आप फिर से ला नहीं सकते हो. All that you can keep with yourself is the hope कि yes, I will get the call for this interview. अब अगर आपने prepare ही नहीं किया and then you are keeping up hope for that interview to get converted, तो वो extreme positive हो गया. But then yes, if you are prepared in advance and you know that थोड़ा बहुत इधर उधर हुआ कुछ questions, but be hopeful कि yes, एक आध क्वेश्चन मेरा नहीं जमा, it's fine, it's perfectly fine. Nobody is expert, and even interviewers are not looking for someone who is expert. Nobody in this world is expert, they are also knowing this. Even the person who is taking the interview is also aware of the facts, right? At the end, depart gracefully. So again, as I've told you, you have to keep a smile. If at all it was a stressed interview, ऐसा नहीं कि बहुत उदास चेहरा या बहुत गुस्से वाला चेहरे में आप डिपार्ट हो रहे हो. डिपार्ट ग्रेसफुली, उनको थैंक यू बोलो, ठीक है. एंड यू मे बी आस्किंग देम फॉर दिस, दैट सर व्हेन कैन आई एक्सपेक्ट the reward from your end. So these are few, postures or maybe some gestures that you can put across. Certainly there are some don'ts that you have to follow. So don't make excuses. Sometimes it happens that you forgot to get some documents, you forgot to take some documents which were necessary at that point in time, and you could not because you did all the preparation last minute. And at that time you are making excuses that I was not being informed, or it was not being told to me on the email ID or maybe on the call. So don't make excuses. If it's your mistake, accept it. It's perfectly fine. There's no point in that. Don't make negative comments. At times it happens that they may ask you a question on the situation which is happening in Bangladesh, right? Of course, that is something which is very extreme, which is going on. But then yes, again, you should not make negative comments on the politicians or maybe people around all that disaster. So it's better that you speak very limited on that topic and just try to divert from it, right? All that you can do is, if something negative is also happening during that interview, try to divert yourself from that. Don't falsify your application material or your answers. As I told you, if you're going to bluff, definitely you will be caught. Don't go to extreme with your postures. Don't slouch or sitting on the edge of the chair. Sometimes we get nervous and we just sit at the edge and we just sit like this. Okay. Never put your cell phones on the table. Always keep it in your bag. So these are certain things that you have to keep in your mind. Don't allow your cell phones to sound. So if at all it is there in your bag, make sure that it's on silent mode. Don't look at the text message, so don't keep phone around you, will itself neglect both these points. Now, most importantly, don't show lack of attention or energy. That is why I have told you that be relaxed, keep a smile. That itself shows that you are energetic and you are interested in that interview, right? Because it's two-way round. So if you need a job, the other person is also requiring a good person for that position. Don't contradict your own answers. Reason being, if you are talking about your internship, you said something else before and then you are trying to contradict your answers. So that may lead you to rejections because this is something which is expected that you are prepared pre-hand with the interviews. Now let's begin with some interview questions. Before that, I would talk about how to practice those questions, right? Because if I've given you a list of questions, it is important to practice them. So when I say practice them, there are three things that you have to follow. First of all, be clear with what you wanted to convey through your interviewer. Second, if you're clear, you are clear in your head that yes, I wanted to tell this about me to the interviewer. At that point in time, what you can do is you can start writing about it. So make short notes so that you will be in a position to recollect them and can give the proper answer at that point in time. At the same time, once you are prepared with the writing, the next step is speak to yourself, maybe in front of a mirror so that you can be more confident with the questions. Now, the very first question, I do not have to tell you about this. So this is a very standard question that is tell me something about yourself. Many students may be having this query or this question in their mind that how to deal with this question, and I would say you that 70% of the time after giving your answer to this question, tell me about yourself, you have been selected or you have been rejected, right? So the interviewer will make the mindset that whether I have to continue asking the question to this person or should I ask two, three questions and wind up it, right? So you have to be very, very sure about what you wanted to tell in this particular question. Now you can divide this particular question in three parts, right? You can divide this question in three parts, and there could be a proper logic to it. Reason being, the purpose of asking this question is not that the interviewer really wanted to know about you. The resume is already telling the interviewer that what sort of person you are, or maybe who you are, what is your name, or what was your academics, and what are your achievements, or what are your extracurricular activities. You have written everything there. So it doesn't mean that the person is really wanted to understand that are you able to speak what you have written. That is not a purpose. The purpose is crystal clear. The person is trying to ask you or maybe to make you comfortable with the situation, right? Because this is something which you will say confidently about you. अगर वो कोई और question से शुरू करेंगे तो शायद आप उतना comfortable नहीं होगे with the interviewer. So to make you comfortable, this is the first question which is being asked to you. So how we can divide it in three areas. First is you can talk about your name and your academics, right? So this is first that you have to focus on. So in first part, you have to talk about your name and your academics. In second part, you have to talk about the internships, the achievements, and the extracurricular activities that you have taken. In the last part, you have to focus on something which will last the impression. Maybe after 2 days, 3 days, the person should be in a mind to recollect you. Yes, you are the one who gave the interview, right? So what we will do for that? Maybe you can take up some hobby, you can take up some interest, or maybe you can talk about your long-term or short-term goal, so that the person will be curious to know that other than academics, other than internship, other than achievements, what all others have done, what extra you have done. So probably somebody who is interested playing violin. So you can say that from last 10 years, I am learning violin, or maybe I am learning guitar, right? So this is something that we are talking about hobbies. You can talk about n number of hobbies to make the last impression. And mainly when I say hobbies, some of you start copying with reading as a hobby. And if somebody is asking you that what you have read last time, you are totally blank. So वैसा impression नहीं छोड़ना है, ठीक है, जिसमें आपको क्वेश्चन पूछा और आपको खुद को ही नहीं पता है, तो उस तरीके से भी याद रखते हैं इंटरव्यूअर्स कि इसको मैंने ये क्वेश्चन पूछा था बट उसको पता ही नहीं था, राइट? एंड द अदर वे राउंड कुड बी that you have made a lasting impression in their minds. So this is how you can divide your tell me something about yourself. Next question is list down your strengths and weaknesses. I'm sure you may get any number of words to support this answer, but my sincere request is whenever this question is being asked, the purpose is very clear, and at the same time I'm telling you the purpose also why these questions have been asked. So the purpose of the first question is to make you comfortable with that environment. The purpose of second question is to just check that how much aware you are about yourself and do you have facts ready for it or not, right? So when I say facts ready for it or not, let's take an example. If somebody has asked you that what are your strengths and weaknesses, and you say that I'm multitasking. Okay, so with multitasking, you should not stop there. You should also talk about this that during your college you have done any number of things together. It means you have handled so many things at the same time. That shows that you are multitasking and it should be reflected in your resume also. Then only with the facts you will be able to justify this answer. Next question, it talks about why did you choose this particular specialization. So maybe whatever specialization you are into, if you are a technical person and if you are an engineer, you may have different specialization. From management field, you may be having different specialization like human resource, marketing, finance, operations. So you should be aware that why you have taken up that particular specialization and how to prepare for it. Again, it could be a good question. How to prepare for these specialization? Start reading newspaper. You will be aware of what the trend is, what is going on in marketing, what is going on in finance, what is the need of an hour, what are the different sectors which is covering all those parts, right? So this is how we can prepare. Next is talking about your internship. So when we talk about internships, it is more about describing ourselves, what actually we have done at that point in time, what practical knowledge we have taken. It is not about the summary that we have written in our internship project. It is not really about this, right? So for internship you have to be ready with the key learnings. Next, your future goals. So some of you may cover it in the first question if you wish to. If not, definitely this can be a question which can be asked to you. Your favorite subject? Yes, definitely this can be asked. Favorite subject? अब वहाँ बैठ के मत सोचना कि favorite subject क्या है. And sometimes we misinterpret with this कि जिस भी सब्जेक्ट में ज़्यादा मार्क्स आए उसको फेवरेट बना दो और फिर कई बार उसके आंसर्स भी नहीं बनते हो. ठीक है, so don't do that. Pick up a subject where your interest lies. Maybe marks come aaye hain, but then because it is your interest area, you will be able to manage with the questions. Now, most importantly, situational based questions. तो ये बहुत tricky questions होते हैं. इसमें कोई भी right या wrong answers नहीं होंगे, right? So, for example, if I say which is your biggest achievement, so might be you have written 2-3 achievements in your resume, and the person has asked you that which was your biggest achievement, and you have talked about, let's say, XYZ example. So the person can grill you on that, right? The person would be interested again knowing the facts that why you are saying that this is your biggest achievement, though you have written 2-3 achievements in your resume. Give your opinion on certain current affairs as I've told you, but then don't become too extreme with that. Okay? Don't indulge into the personal front. Don't talk too much about a person because you never know if you are not liking that person, the other person may be liking him, right? So that can lose your chance of getting that job. At the end, all your purpose of preparedness is to get that job, right? Why should we select you? Again, a very tricky question. I've already told you that you should not be, showing overconfidence with this. But then yes, definitely the purpose of asking this question is whether you have read the job description properly or not. So if you have read the job description, definitely you'll be able to answer this question that yes, I have read this, that you have mentioned in your JD, in your job description, and these are the qualities which I possess. So that is the basic purpose of asking this. So the purpose of asking the opinion on the current affairs is very clear. The person just wanted to know that whether you carry your own opinion or you are just going by what the writer is writing in the newspaper. Situational based questions, definitely the purpose is to ask and to check your preparedness for the interview and the way you make decisions and you solve the problems. The last question would be, do you want to ask anything from us? So in this question, again, I told you, don't prepare question there. Prepare pre-hand while going through the JD or while going through the company profile. So maybe you can answer this question very well. So that's all from my end. Thank you so much. Wish you good luck. In case you need any help in future, we will be coming up with such sessions, and I'm sure I will be elaborating every question in detail with some examples. So stay connected and stay happy.